based on our own experience in our main vulnerable customers and also our own experience of the previous year. Camille, could you introduce yourself? Hello, thank you very much for your presence. My name is Camille. I'm an analyst for intelligence in cyber crime, cyber threat in a comprehensive manner, and I have also worked on different cyber crises thanks to my experience in Sopra Steria. I'm going to share these two aspects of my daily work with you. I'm going to share this with you. My name is Nicola. I'm the operational director. After 20 years of experience in the computer science and cybersecurity, I had to manage very many operational crises or safety-related crises. So we are going to share in a modest way what we have been doing and how we do manage crisis. Camille, could you remind us the present situation of the crisis and the threat? You know that the cyber threat today is very active. So there are different ransomware and espionage also. And every day we notice in Sopra Steria, and I would like to insist on that. These are our own figures, our own data. Since April, 64 accidents. And regarding the threat, we do, of course, take care of 64 threats, malwares, and attackers groups. And therefore, today, we have been doing since the end of 2020 one crisis every month for customers who work in very sensitive sectors, and we provide them with support for 1 to 3 months to recover fully their activity. And the threat during these last 5 years is comprehensive, is international somehow. The trend is the increase of attacks and destruction. So these are ransomware, as we have been noticing it with WannaCry since 2016. There has been successes, increasingly more important. One of them had to close down, and Conti and Networker, that are the most lucrative ransomwares, and Maze. So this is a destruction, a trend to destruction. Another trend is APT threat, that is to say against states, and espionage brings a lot of money for people. And we have noticed is that during the summertime, attacks against French entities by APT-31, and they can have very many different consequences for companies that we do represent in Sopra Steria. They might lose their confidential data, they might lose their reputation, financial, and even they might stop totally their own production. So in Sopra Steria, we try to have a comprehensive and collaborative management of the crisis. This means, first of all, to focus on the organizational matters. And Nicola can maybe give you more details about this very dimension. So when we try to work on the crisis, we have to face 3 different kinds of actors. DSI and DG and professions, and also RSSI. And each of them has a different problem. When we talk about DSI, they have to really work with their teams. And then, so the issue is to be very rapid, to mobilize, and also their capability to focus their teams on what is the most important element for their own business. Very often they do other side activities, and they get scattered, so their response reaction is reduced. So they have to focus on their technical activities, and therefore they really need priority decisions. And there are sometimes they take too many time for taking decisions, and therefore their efficiency would decrease. So what about RSSI? You have to understand the situation, what is going on, why, what is the extent of the threat. And for that matter, they have to have a tactical database of the problems, and also whether there has been an information system compromise. So they need robust, of course, information. How the information is circulating within the company, and the way the teams work, and also the way the CISO works, the Chief Information Security Officer. And also very often the CISO has to face the legal matters. Very many things happen when a crisis happens, and the CISO has to comply or take care of the legal compliance. For example, what happens with the personal data. In the 72 hours, you have to take care of the personal data. You have to also notify the authorities. And also the CISO also has a key role to maintain the trust with the whole ecosystem, the whole environment of their company. They have to manage communication, and they have to communicate with their own ecosystem. We are going to share with you our own experiences as well. And also, what about the management? You have to understand the impact of this cyber attack. What is important for the company? So what has been the impact? Do I have to stop whole sectors of my activity? How am I going to collaborate? How am I going to take care of the different teams? How am I going to decide about the priorities? Because these decisions have to come from the management on the basis of intelligence. And this is what we call a comprehensive approach. So you have to address technical issues, but also the operational issues and strategic issues. All these actors have to focus on two issues at stake, which are the most important ones, that is to say, time and trust. The trust of their ecosystem, of their own workers, employees in these crisis management. We believe that we have to have a comprehensive approach, collaborative approach, and always based on feedbacks. What do I mean by comprehensive approach? So we have to address the technical, operational, and strategic aspects. For us, what is important is the starting point should be technical aspect, then we have tactical intelligence, and then you have to be able to interpret this and put it in a whole background, and then to have strategic approach to drive the crisis. And what about the future plan for the remedy? What about the collaborative approach? You cannot fully alone face the crisis. So very rapidly, you have to work with partners. In Sopra Steria, we have a whole network of collaboration with different partners at the technical level or state level. Therefore, we can face the most critical crisis. Our issue at stake is to mobilize these partners for managing this crisis. And of course, on a permanent basis, we review all these processes, whether if we look at the cyber attacks for our customers, or the cyber attacks against ourselves. And therefore we can address and we can focus on two important moments for managing the crisis. So the response phases, but also an anticipation. You have to be to anticipate things and to face these two most important issues. Time. The better you are prepared, the more you are going to earn or spare time. And also, what about the trust of the ecosystem? When they will know that you have been attacked, you have been under a cyber attack. So, managing a crisis includes three moments. First of all, when the crisis has started, is triggered. So it means a few hours to a few days. Then another moment is you have the investigation phases, identifying things, detection. Our experience says that it can be a few days for the simplest crisis to several weeks when you have big groups with the complex information system, and it takes a lot of time to do the assessment. Then a third moment is remediation, or it's not a matter of days, but it's a matter of weeks or months when you have very complex information system. So the first step, the beginning, the first activities is very clearly to be capable of mobilizing your teams and your crisis process. How are you able to have collaboration? How do you control this process in order to make sure that your resources are fully committed? Another one is communication. Everything is very at high speed today. So if you are attacked, and this is going to have an actual impact on the work of your workers, you have to be capable of communicating in the company, inside the company, to tell people what's happening and to reassure them. If your information system is put off, they are going to be afraid. So communication is not only inside the company, it's also outside. Towards the institutions, you have to communicate towards your whole system, your customers, in a safe manner. And of course, sometimes your own communication system is not going to be trustworthy anymore. So you have to find communication means which are safe in order not to tell the attacker what is it that you have been doing and what you are doing for the investigation phase, the detection phase. And then the second step is to understand the extent of this attack. This is the first thing that we do, to try to understand what's happening. Sometimes it might look very banal, but the attackers we have sometimes huge capabilities or different capabilities. So you don't know what has been impacted in your information system. So very clearly what we notice that you need an investigation of several weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, not a few days or a few hours of investigation. The aim is to understand and therefore to define this tactical intelligence which will allow you to drive operationally this crisis. Another very basic aim is to understand what has to be detected. So you have to do incident response. You have to protect the information system that you try to restore so that the attacker doesn't come back. Mainly when you have ransomwares, attacks, if you miss a detection and leave some room for the malware to come back, and this might totally destroy 2 to 3 weeks of your work. So you really have to control properly on this very phase of detection. People focus too much on the first stage. The third stage is just several weeks or several months, is protection of the system. and always based on the tactical intelligence. And here the issue is to understand properly what has happened. What has been the weak points used by the attacker? If they have entered, it's because there has been weak points. So you have to understand these weak points, to understand these weak points and come back. And with computer teams, because the computer teams, they are already exhausted by this first stage. But here you have to decide about priorities. And therefore, you have to go from tactical or strategic intelligence. You have to focus on that to have a proper work. And when you add up all these things, we see that you need 3 months to manage a cyber attack. 6 months in order to fully trust your information system, and even 9 months to come back to the normal situation where everything in the company would work like before the cyber attack. So Nicola talked about a response stage. What we have to know is that this is an approach which is collaborative and a comprehensive one. And in Sopra Steria, we have 5 pillars. These are our basic pillars that we use in order to respond to a crisis. This is what we did for our own crisis and for our customers. First of all, a matter of governance, cyber threat intelligence, and I would like to focus on that because this is my job actually: investigation, detection, remediation. 3 pillars by CTI-based pillar, sorry. And about governance now, we see this in 3 ways. That it has 3 levels. So technical governance, first of all. In my own personal experience, when I was going through the crisis of the customers, so we had to organize meetings to follow up the action points, to have meetings in the morning, in the evening, to see what are the actions for the morning teams, the evening teams, so that the teams have a continuity in their work. This is the very first level of our governance. Then if you go to a higher level, this is called operational governance. Here you have to take care and put forward proposals to the customer, to provide support, to give guidance for them to take the decisions. So to explain what has been done, and also to have different rotations. It's a matter of human resources. You have to manage the teams and have, for example, shifts every 8 hours, 3 times 8 hours shift, and to see, okay, which team has to take up actions when. And finally, we have the strategic governance. This is the highest level, the executive level. You have to have and to explain to the, let's say, highest hierarchy of a company what is going to be the impacts of this management, whether they can start their production again, what are the conditions, what has been the outcomes of the other teams, for example, the investigation, and how far you can go. So after governance, we have internal governance and external governance. At the internal level, you have to take up actions. Legally speaking, you have to provide support legally to the customer. For example, when they have to lodge a complaint, when they have to go to the CNIL, we have to provide pieces of proof, and also to organize and to provide guidance to the customer. Shall I pay the money to these people or not? And then also the communication is the same. So you have to reassure the workers, to explain them how these things are going to happen, and externally also you have to take care of the confidentiality, and you are not going to talk about everything that you know. What about external communication? You are going to talk to institutions. So, for example, the commander, and that is to say where they can provide support to us. And then there is the operational communication. We are going to talk with our partners, with the providers, and with whom that we trust. And communication, what you have to remember is that it has to be prepared in advance, and the preparation is the key element for a successful crisis management. Communication has to be prepared beforehand. You have to know who you can trust and who you can rely on, who can have the information. And then what about the financial aspect? We know that a cyber attack is expensive. These financing also has to be prepared beforehand. You need to have computers for investigation, copies of the disks so that they can do copies, and everything which is material. You need what is needed. You need to have what is needed, and preparation is once again the key element. And the whole logistical aspect. We are going to talk about the human logistics. At the end of the day, if we talk about material element, we talk about computer servers, at the end of the day, human beings are going to respond. Human beings are going to manage and solve the crisis. So you need to have shifts, 3 times 8 hours, to manage the time. Maybe management could work during the nighttime because they need to have some serenity, and also during the daytime they can do the communication work. So we have to think about this. So this is the governance part, and this is my job. And then my other activity is cyber intelligence. The idea is that when I work in this part, this allows me, together with the governance, to have a comprehensive view about the whole crisis management, to have information about the attackers that I can share with the hierarchy of the company. And so for the CTI, we have a very mainstream intelligence method. We are going to collect data and intelligence. We are going to put this in a platform, and we need information in a specific moment when we have to face this cyber attack, and to put it in a specific background. We have lots of information. We use IP addresses, etc. It's not enough. You need the whole background. Why have I been attacked at a specific moment? Why there are these attack campaigns? So these allow us to better understand a cyber attack, to go beyond technical data, which of course are useful today, I have to say it. Today we use very tangible or very concrete data, but the whole background is really essential for a better understanding. So this very aspect, in my company, we try to work with this on partners. As Nicola was saying, they are sovereign partner, but also we have partners that we call sovereign because they allow us to keep the data on the French territory or the European territory, and also we use sovereign services because they allow us to have French and competitive cyber safety products. On the screen you can see Alice, It's a service of dark web about the role of intelligence in the dark space. So the idea is always to know the threat which exists today in the dark way, to look for information. And it's very useful when you have to face a ransomware, because ransomware works on these networks. The idea is to have an idea about the facilities they have bought, the identity of the different actors involved, and then also the threat intelligence and our platforms. And we work with one specific platform every day, and on which I work myself. The idea is to have a kind of comprehensive, updated databases. And when there is a cyber attack, we have to have this information that we need. So this IP is in relation with this attacker. So the idea is to go forward.
Donc l'idée, c'est d'avancer comme ça. Et, pardon, excuse-moi, je vais essayer d'aller plus vite. Et ensuite, donc, la CTI va venir, donc toujours, comme on le disait tout à l'heure, elle va venir donc fournir les orientations aux autres services. Donc les autres services sont les autres piliers sur lesquels on s'appuie dans une crise. Donc le premier pilier qu'on vous parle, enfin le troisième.
And so the third one is investigation. So we are giving elements for how to proceed and some information as well that are tangible for the investigation, for them to know which tools to use. We also for detection and the detection phase, we are always trying to find the compromission indicators. We're trying to see what those indicators are linked to. As Nicolas was saying, we're trying to see as well if there are anything that is being detected by our detection tools. And we always use the mid-referential. And for the last pillar, this is remediation. So we are trying to know the attacker better, and we are trying to get all the information that we need so we know exactly what to do. So for example, if the attacker is doing a ransomware, we're not going to use the same remediation plan than if we are against an ATP plan. So you need to get more time and more information, because it's not the same if you have a virus that is just there trying to get information, or if you're faced with an attacker with a ransomware that is destroying the entire system if you don't give them the money. So what we have today is more or less for ransomware cases, and we'll also try to identify the threat better so we can remediate to it. And I think I'm going to give the floor back to Nicolas, who is a bit more skilled than me when it comes to that. Can you go the slide? Next slide, please. So then we have the investigation phase. This is a very conventional phase. I don't think I'm going to go too much into details, but I wanted to give you some feedback, some experience feedback. The objective here is to understand and to identify how big the attack is. But when we're talking about collaboration, and earlier on we were saying that we are always playing against time, we were faced with cyber attacks on which we were against 150 malware. So automating 150 malware is something extremely complex. So this is what we call the collaborative approach, because what we've done there is that we've called our partner, Glimpse, and we've coordinated something so that we could counterattack these malware. And so we've done the whole process that Camille just explained to you with our partner. Then there is a part that is a bit more complicated because it is pretty complex, but it is key as well. It's the doubt removal phase, when you know where the attacker is and you get closer to it, you can do your investigation. But if the attacker didn't go anywhere, hasn't left any trace, for example, in our cyber attack, we had a gigantic volume of files that we've had to scan to make sure that we had no problems in those files. I'm talking about millions of files here. And so once again here, we rely on a French innovative ecosystems with our partners such as Quackslab. And we've been able to scan all of these millions of files over a few weeks to make sure that we had no more threats within our information system. I also wanted to insist on another point, which I think is also a key point. If you want to be able to raise a case to justice, or if you want to be able to negotiate with your insurance company all of the consequences from that cyber attack, you need to make sure that you deal this investigation phase very professionally. Sometimes when you get there, everything is completely destroyed, and there's nothing that we can use for an insurance company or at the court. So it's important to rely on a third party in which you trust, that has all the processes and all the guarantees, that can keep trace of what you've done as an investigation as well, so you can use it in court or for the insurance company. Then I've already talked about it, so I'm not going to go back into details, but the stake here is to make sure that you can trust your information system, that you can still trust your ecosystem, as well as when it comes to what's scanned during the investigation. But also the capacity to detect is extremely important. So we first start by deploying detection systems. We do that massively within the companies in which we are working. But at Sopra Steria, we are also firmly convinced that not everything happens within the network. So with our partners, as Camille mentioned them, with our partners when it comes to dark web, we also think that we need to do some surveillance, some monitoring on what's happening on the dark web. Because attackers will always try to get money out of the information that they get. So this is also a sort of detection, even though you're not using a security detection solution. So then when it comes to the remediation phase, I think the main message is that once you get to the remediation phase, your teams will be already exhausted, because this is a process that will be lasting for weeks. So you need to rely on renowned frameworks. You need to rely on tactical information that comes from the threat intelligence, so that you can take advantage as much as you can from the information that you get for this remediation phase. So the idea is to always have those frameworks to help you out in your work throughout the process. For us, we use a lot the CSI framework. We also use the NIST. And this is what helps us deal with that remediation phase. So the good news here is that, as Camille said, there are a lot of things that we can plan ahead. And if you anticipate, you'll be able to save a lot of time when doing the investigation phase. So there are two things that you need, two levers that you need to activate when you are dealing with a crisis. First of all, you really need to work on governance. The more you have processes, the more you have people that are dedicated to this type of situation that will be probably very violent once it breaks out. The more you have that, the more you will save time. If we take a closer look, we also have to be on the CTI phase. We need to make sure that we know the threat before it actually happens, so that we know exactly what to do during the investigation. Am I targeted because I am who I am? Or am I targeted though I am not really concerned by what's happening here? The thing is that whatever you do, threats and organizations are always evolving, and that's why it's so important for your company to train. You need to train, you need to gain experience, because it's only with experience that you'll be able to deal, to manage the crisis at your best level very efficiently. So we can do some exercises such as a crisis simulation, in which we can test the detection, we can test the threat intelligence, or we can even test the entire organization to make sure that everything that was planned works out. So, for example, on Friday night before the FIC, does it still work, or are all of the security teams just went to Lille? So based on this experience, we have established 5 best practices that you can start implementing right away in your company. So the first one is that you need to integrate reaction and detection capacities right now. Usually we are working for companies in which those capacities are non-existent. And so we spend 1 to 2 weeks to develop these capacities. And so it's 1 to 2 weeks during which the company has to keep going on a degraded mode. It's still me, sorry. I'll keep on. Test, I've just said that. You need to test your crisis system, your crisis management system. Processes can be viable and you can rely on them if you're able to test them and to challenge them. So you need to make sure that they work in a more practical manner. So this time it's my turn. When it comes to recommendations that I usually give, especially for the sectors that I told you about, especially for CTI, CTI and so intelligence is key. Today we have to be able to anticipate the threat and have a global view of it. So we need to have information. Of course, this is a very long process. We need to bet on that long-term process. But honestly, this really works out. So for me, the key element is also governance. Crisis management is, just like a marathon. It goes quite fast, but it's still quite long. So as Nicholas was saying, it's important to have a complete remediation phase. It can take up to 9 months. So it's important to have the budget, the human resources, and all the skills that you need to deal with that. And then the last point, and the most precious thing that you have is time. I think we've established that already. So you need to give more time to your teams to free them of some workload so they have more time. So that you can also work with a partner, a third party that will be helping your teams, that will help them save time. And this partner will also be the one that will guarantee that you are managing the crisis efficiently so that you don't have any problem with your ecosystem once it's over. So here it is. I think that this is what we think is the best way of managing a crisis. This is a solution that has been proven in the past few months. And if you'd like to, we are more than happy to take a few questions. Yes. Hi, I just wanted to know if you could tell us more about what happened to you. So the experience that you got away from what you have to face, and the reason why you've established all of these processes and how you work with your clients. All right, so my answer will be based on 2 pillars. You can imagine that I won't be giving you a lot of elements in public, of course, regarding what happened to us. This is usually what we do case by case in our booth by discussing with you, because those elements are quite important to us, and it's important as well for us to trust the people who we're talking to. So we don't really like talking about this in public. And when it comes to what we've implemented, well, everything that we've told you, that we've explained to you, we've implemented it in our own company. So we've been able to be very responsive. We've been able to protect our company. We've had to shut down the company. That was a very tough decision to make. To make this decision, we had to know the threat and the level of risk for our group and our customers. So we've made the decision to shut the company down so that we could protect our customers and our own group. And we've done exactly what we've just explained to you. So we've scanned every file, every single thing. So this is something that we've proven in our own cyber attack, but also we've proven it to be a really good way of managing a crisis while working with our customers.